On a quiet morning in the wooded outskirts, Laura, a 60-year-old woman living with her loyal elderly dog, never imagined that her familiar walk would lead her to a moment that would change multiple lives. Hidden within dense bushes, she discovered a blind, starving, and severely injured bobcat lying motionless on the fragile line between life and death. But what made everything truly extraordinary was Leo, the dog who stubbornly led her deeper into the forest, as if trying to say, "Please, follow me." What could possibly bind a house dog, a lonely older woman, and a wild creature seemingly beyond saving? And how could love overcome fear, survival instinct, and even the boundaries between species? Before stepping into this deeply moving journey, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more heart-healing stories like this one. The world was a crushing weight, a silent swirling void of pain, a lone broken shadow where the wilderness met despair. The scent of pine and damp earth, once a comforting blanket, now felt like a shroud. Oscar the bobcat, a creature once so magnificent, a blur of muscle and instinct, lay still. His breath a ragged whisper, a fight for every shallow intake of air. His keen eyes, once piercing gold, were now filmed over, milky and blind, seeing nothing but the insistent blackness behind his eyelids. Dehydrated, emaciated, every bone a stark ridge beneath his matted, dull fur, he was a testament to suffering, a raw, exposed nerve in the unforgiving forest. The cold seeped into his very marrow, and the relentless ache in his limbs made even the smallest twitch a monumental effort. If he could still make a sound, a cry for the comfort he no longer remembered, it was swallowed by the vast, indifferent expanse of the woods. He was utterly alone, adrift in a sea of agony, his wild spirit slowly, agonizingly slipping away. Then came a new scent, not the familiar musk of deer or the sharp tang of squirrel, but something alien, a mix of old growth and a strange, sweet metal. It was a disturbance in the quiet symphony of his dying. A shuffle, heavy and slow, broke through the ringing in his ears. He tried to raise his head, to snap, to claw, but his body betrayed him. His muscles, wasted to threadbare cords, refused to obey. The vibrations grew, thudding closer, and a new fear, cold and primal, sparked in the dying embers of his mind. A giant shadow fell over him, blocking out even the faint perceived light. He felt a light prod, then a strange, soft pressure. Something warm and rough draped over him, muffling the sounds, enclosing him. Panic, a frantic flutter in his chest, fought against the lethargy. He thrashed weakly, his claws, dull and brittle, scraping against the fabric. A low, rumbling voice, deep and unfamiliar, murmured, a sound that held no discernible threat, yet no comfort either. The world tilted, spun, and then he was moving. The movement was jarring, each jolt sending fresh waves of agony through his wasted frame. He could feel the strong, steady grip of the giant, the rhythmic sway of their walk. A new scent, sharper, cleaner, like antiseptic, began to replace the damp earth. The sounds changed too, from the rustle of leaves to a dull thrumming, a distant roar. He was placed down gently on something hard and rattling. The enclosure was small, dark, and constricted. He could feel the cool metal bars pressing against his fur. A whimper, thin and raspy, escaped his throat, a sound he hadn't made in what felt like an eternity. He pressed himself into the corner, every instinct screaming danger, the memory of hunters, of traps, a sharp, cold sting. Then light, blinding, clinical, it seared through his damaged eyes, making him flinch. The rattling opened, and a new giant, with a different, sharper scent, leaned over him. He felt a soft, cool touch, then a slight prick, a sharp, momentary pain in his flank. His body tensed, ready to fight, but the wave of lethargy was too strong. A strange, metallic taste, then a gush of cool, clean water in his mouth. He swallowed instinctively, his parched throat aching with the effort. It was the purest sensation, a small, undeniable flicker of relief in the vast darkness of his suffering. More gentle prodding, the soft murmur of voices, too low to understand, too unfamiliar to trust. He was still terrified, but the water was a small miracle. He was lifted again, placed on something soft and warm, a strange, comforting heat seeping into his aching muscles. A new aroma, sweet and meaty, tantalized his dulled senses. A bowl was placed before him, and his nose twitched, a tiny, involuntary response. He lowered his head hesitantly, his blind eyes scanning the emptiness. The giant's hand, surprisingly gentle, nudged the bowl closer. He took a tentative lick, then another. The taste was rich, savory, and his stomach, long empty, grumbled in protest and anticipation. He ate, slowly at first, then with a growing urgency, the food a balm to his starved body. Each bite was a triumph, a tiny step away from the edge. The giant's voice, Laura's voice, was a soft, steady hum nearby, no longer menacing, but something akin to presence. He was still lost, still blind, but the cold, hungry gnawing in his belly was finally, mercifully, beginning to subside. He was not alone in his suffering anymore. Could a retiree and her faithful dog be the last hope for a creature lost to the wild? Laura, a compassionate 60-year-old widow whose heart was as open as the sprawling fields behind her modest home, wasn't looking for another life to save. Her world revolved around her beloved golden retriever, Leo, whose golden fur and perpetually wagging tail were a constant source of joy. Their morning walks were a sacred ritual, a quiet communion with nature. But this particular Tuesday, the usual rhythm was shattered by an urgent, almost desperate whine from Leo. Leo, a dog renowned for his steadfast, predictable nature, was not himself. He pulled on his leash with an uncharacteristic force, a low, guttural growl rumbling in his chest. It wasn't an aggressive sound, but one steeped in distress. A primal alarm Laura had never heard from him. He veered sharply off their familiar, packed dirt path, plunging into the denser undergrowth of the woods that bordered their property. "Leo, what is it, boy?" Laura murmured, her brow furrowing with concern. The thicket snagged at her jeans, and damp leaves clung to her shoes. But Leo's urgency was undeniable. He was usually so gentle, so amenable. And this was different. He wasn't chasing a squirrel, wasn't following a scent trail of some hidden deer. This was a mission, a profound instinctive pull. Oscar felt a dull throb in his leg, a constant gnawing ache that had become his only companion for what felt like an eternity. The world was a dizzying blur of pain and a relentless thirst that scratched at his throat, making his rough tongue feel like sandpaper. He tried to move, to hunt, but each shift sent a fresh wave of agony through his broken limb. The scent of pine and damp earth was strong, familiar. Yet it brought no comfort, only the metallic tang of his own fear. He heard distant sounds, the chirping of birds, the rustle of unseen creatures, but they were fading, becoming indistinct whispers at the edge of his awareness. Then a new sound, heavy footsteps, a strange, persistent panting. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the haze of pain. Predator! He tried to flatten himself further into the decaying leaves, his mottled fur a poor camouflage against the vibrant green moss. His muscles trembled with exhaustion, his breathing shallow. He was tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of the endless, gnawing emptiness in his belly. Leo, still pulling, suddenly stopped, nose twitching, a soft whimper escaping him. His tail, usually a lively pendulum, was tucked low, barely wagging. Then Laura saw it, a small, mottled heap of fur, nestled deep within the roots of an ancient oak. "Oh my God, Leo," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. It was a bobcat, no older than a year, she guessed, and clearly in dire straits. One hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, swollen to twice its normal size, and dried blood matted the fur around it. Its breath was shallow, ragged, each gasp a testament to a fading life. The bobcat's eyes, the color of burnt caramel, fluttered open, registering her form, a giant looming over him. Fear, raw and instinctual, sparked in those dying embers, and he tried to push himself deeper into the earth, a soft, pitiful hiss escaping his throat. It was a sound of desperate warning, of a wild creature at its most vulnerable. Laura knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she couldn't leave him. This wasn't just a sick animal. This was a plea, a silent cry echoing through the woods brought to her by her faithful dog. Leo nudged her hand, then looked from her to the suffering Bobcat, his message clear. "Okay, boy, okay," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. The Bobcat Oscar, as she decided to call him in that instant, was clearly terrified, but also too weak to truly fight. Laura slowly, carefully, began to assess the situation, her mind racing. She needed help. Real help. This was beyond a simple bandage and a bowl of water. This was life or death, balanced on the precipice of a faint whisper of hope, delivered by a golden retriever's unerring instinct. Laura, despite her fear of being scratched or bitten, felt a strange connection to the animal. It was a shared vulnerability, a silent understanding of suffering. She backed away slowly, giving Oscar space, but never truly leaving. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling, and called the local animal shelter, her voice a tight whisper of urgency. She described the scene, the severity of the injury, Leo's unexpected role as a guide. They promised to send a team immediately. For what felt like an eternity, Laura and Leo simply waited, watching over the small, broken creature. Oscar, exhausted, eventually closed his eyes again, but this time there was a faint, almost imperceptible shift in his tense body. He was still terrified, but perhaps, just perhaps, the presence of the two giants, the one with the soft voice and the other with the concerned, gentle pant, offered a sliver of something new, a strange comfort, a faint whisper of hope. The world was a kaleidoscope of pain and confusion. A raw, ragged edge of hunger gnawed at Oscar the Bobcat's belly, a constant, dull throb that had long since replaced the sharp pangs of true starvation. Now there was a new sensation, sharp and jarring. Hands, giant hands, not like the quick, brutal hands of the two legs who had once trapped him, but softer, slower. They moved with a strange deliberation, not a hunt. Fear, a cold serpent, coiled in his gut, overriding even the gnawing ache in his leg. He flattened himself against the rough ground, a low growl rumbling in his chest, a desperate, futile warning. He wanted to disappear, to melt into the shadows and become one with the earth, but the pain wouldn't let him move, and the shadows were retreating as the big sunball climbed higher. The giants were talking, their voices low rumbles that vibrated through the air. One of them, a smaller giant with hair the color of snow, was speaking to the others, pointing at him with a trembling hand. He understood nothing of their strange sounds, only the intent in their eyes. Pity? Fear? He didn't know. He only knew they were getting closer, and his instinct screamed danger. A thick, dark net, like a shadow made solid, descended. He thrashed, a burst of frantic energy born of terror, but his body was a traitor. Pain shot through his injured leg, a searing fire that stole his strength. He felt himself being enveloped, lifted. The world spun. He was being carried, swaying, the scent of unfamiliar giants filling his nostrils, a strange mix of sweat, metal, and something sharp and clean. He hated it. He hated being helpless, being contained. He bit blindly, futilely, at the thick mesh, his teeth dull against the unyielding strands. Then came the darkness, the small, confining darkness of a cage. It smelled of other animals, of fear and disinfectant. He huddled, panting, the adrenaline slowly draining, leaving him weak and shivering. The giants continued to talk, their voices muffled now, as if through a thick wall. The cage moved, bumping and swaying, a strange, dizzying journey. His injured leg pulsed, a dull, aching rhythm. He closed his eyes, trying to conjure the image of the forest, the cool stream, the rustle of leaves under his paws. But all he saw was the inside of his eyelids, a blurry, painful red. When the movement finally stopped, the air grew colder, and new, sharper smells invaded his senses. Antiseptics, something metallic, and the faint, sweet odor of fear. His own fear. He was lifted again, the cage opening to reveal new giants, these with smoother, quieter movements. A strange flat surface beneath him, cold and hard. He tried to scramble away, but a gentle pressure, firm but not cruel, held him down. A new smell now, strong and acrid, as a giant wiped something cold and wet on his fur. Then a sharp, quick sting, a tiny burning pain that surprised him. He hissed, twisting, but it was over almost as soon as it began. A wave of warmth, then drowsiness began to spread through his limbs. The pain in his leg, which had been a constant burning fire, now seemed to recede, as if a cool blanket was being laid over it. He felt his eyelids grow heavy, his muscles relax. The giant's murmurs became distant, soothing sounds. He drifted in and out of a fuzzy awareness. There were soft touches, not grasping or hurting, but gentle. A warmth spread over him, a soft, yielding pressure that felt like the sun-warmed rocks he sometimes slept on. The smell of something clean, not like the harsh smells before, but gentle, like clean earth after a rain. He felt a cool, wet sponge on his face, then something dripping onto his tongue. Clean, sweet water. Not the stagnant pond water he'd been forced to drink. He lapped weakly, the familiar comfort a strange balm to his raw throat. He felt vulnerable, exposed, yet also safe. The pain, though still there, was duller, a distant hum rather than a scream. The giants were still there, moving around him, but their presence no longer brought the same spike of terror. They were just there, and for the first time in a very long time, that felt almost okay. The world was a kaleidoscope of pain, then a dizzying blur of motion. The vibrations from the rough ride rattled Oscar the Bobcat's very bones, each jolt a fresh stab of agony in his starved gut, a new throb in the raw wounds that marked his flanks. He pressed himself into the deepest corner of the carrier, the thin metal, a cold comfort against his matted fur, a futile attempt to disappear. The air smelled of unfamiliar things, antiseptic, strange human sweat, and something else. Something sharp and metallic that scraped at his nose. His eyes, already dim and swimming with a persistent fog, registered only shifting shadows, overwhelming and terrifying. He'd known only darkness and the gnawing ache of hunger for so long that the sudden, jarring invasion of noise and light felt like a violation. Then came the giants. Their voices were low rumblings, their movements swift and purposeful, yet they seemed to emanate a strange softness, a lack of the usual malice he'd encountered. One giant, whose smell was a comforting mix of earth and something sweet, carefully opened the carrier door. Oscar tensed, every muscle screaming, ready to lash out to defend the last vestiges of his broken existence. But no attack came. Instead, he felt a strange pressure, a soft cloth gathering around him, lifting him. The world spun. He was placed onto a hard, cold surface, the sterile tang assaulting his nostrils even more strongly. Prick. A sharp sting, like a bee, but deeper, followed by a sudden, inexplicable warmth spreading through his limbs, a wave of profound drowsiness. He fought it, tried to snarl, but his jaw felt heavy, his body uncooperative. The pain, which had been a constant companion, began to recede, replaced by a dull, pleasant numbness. He was aware of hands, many hands, touching him, prodding. The indignity of it, the invasion, would have infuriated him if his body wasn't so utterly depleted. He felt the cold glide of metal against his skin, heard the soft snip of scissors. His matted fur, which had been a heavy, suffocating blanket, was being trimmed away, revealing the tender, bruised skin beneath. A cool, liquid sensation spread over his wounds, followed by a gentle, soothing pressure as something soft was applied. The giant, whose smell he recognized, Laura, spoke in a soft murmur, a cadence that was almost like a purr. He didn't understand the sounds, but the tone was different from any human he had ever known. There was no aggression, no threat, only a strange, quiet reassurance. He drifted half awake, half asleep, the pain a distant, fading echo. Then came the shock. The giants were talking, their voices low, hushed. He could hear the tremor in Laura's voice, a vibration that resonated with a deep, unfamiliar sadness. He felt a different kind of prodding around his eyes. A cold light, brighter than any he'd known, was directed at them, causing him to flinch, though he couldn't see the light itself. More murmurs, more hushed words. The scent of worry was thick in the air. He sensed a profound shift in the giant's demeanor, a realization dawning. He felt a strange combination of fear and understanding, a sense that they now truly saw the depth of his brokenness. His vision, always a struggle, had truly left him. The world was now a permanent tapestry of dark and indistinct shapes. The persistent ache behind his eyes, a phantom pain, was finally explained. He was moved again, this time to a soft, warm surface. A thick, comforting blanket enveloped him, smelling faintly of the earth giant, Laura. He heard the gentle drip, drip, drip of liquid, felt a small, almost imperceptible prick in his leg. It wasn't painful, but a steady, cool pressure that slowly, steadily began to seep into his starved body. Thirst, a raging inferno for so long, began to recede, replaced by a deep internal rehydration. The infection, a silent burning fire within him, was being fought. He felt the gentle touch of a hand, not prodding, but simply resting on his head, stroking his fur, a rhythmic, soothing motion. The giant, Laura, was near. He could smell her, feel her presence, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Oscar the Bobcat, lost and broken, felt something beyond fear. He felt a sliver of peace, a fragile, nascent trust blooming in the quiet darkness of his unseen battle. The fight was far from over, but he was no longer fighting it alone. The world was a blur of shifting light and strange, acrid smells. My body throbbed with an agony I barely understood, a dull, relentless ache that had become my constant companion. There were voices booming and alien, sometimes the sharp, stinging sensation of a needle, followed by a blissful, muddled quiet. I was Oscar the Bobcat, and I knew only the cold indifference of the wild, and now, this confusing, sterile landscape. But then a new voice began to cut through the haze, a soft, low rumble that felt different. Less like thunder, more like the gentle vibration of a warm stone. I didn't understand the words, but the sound itself was a balm. It came from a giant, often positioned just outside the strange box I was sometimes placed in. This giant, Laura, moved with an unhurried grace that was a stark contrast to the frantic movements of others. Her scent was soft, not the sharp metallic tang of the place, nor the aggressive musk of other predators. It was something warm, like dry leaves and old wood. Each day she would appear, her voice a steady presence, a low hum against the constant throb of my pain. I was often too weak to lift my head, but I could feel her gaze, not predatory, but something else, something that felt like a quiet promise. She would speak, and though the words were meaningless, the cadence was everything. "Oscar," she'd murmur, "you're going to make it, boy. We'll get through this. You and me." The sounds were like a soft blanket settling over my shivering form. The sharp sting of the needles still came, but now often it was followed by the taste of cool, clean water, pressed gently to my muzzle by a soft, warm hand. The sensation of thirst, a torment I had known for days, slowly began to recede. The other giants, the ones in white, often looked at me with a kind of resigned pity, their voices low and grim. They spoke of chances and recovery, but their tones were laced with doubt. Not Laura. Her voice when she spoke to them was firm, unyielding. I could sense the shift in their posture, the slight surprise in their movements when she declared, "He's coming home with me. I'll foster him through it all." Home. The word was alien, yet the way she said it, it resonated with a strange warmth, an echo of forgotten safety. I remembered dens, hidden from the wind, warm against my siblings. This home was a different kind of den, but her voice made it sound like a promise. The vets would argue, citing my severe injuries, the shattered leg that was slowly mending, the internal damage. the long road ahead. They spoke of the financial burden, the round-the-clock care. But Laura was immovable. She saw beyond the blood and the pain, beyond the gaunt frame and the dull eyes. She saw something in me that no one else did. My initial fear of her, a giant with booming words, began to recede, replaced by a growing, tentative curiosity. When she was near, the phantom pains in my body seemed less sharp. The world outside the strange box, when she was there, felt less threatening. She would sit, sometimes for hours, just watching me, her gaze steady, patient. She'd bring small, soft pieces of meat, pressed against my nose, a different texture than the coarse, raw scraps I remembered from my past. The first time I tentatively licked one, the flavor was rich, nourishing, a stark contrast to the gristle and meager pickings of my former life. It was then, as the taste of proper food filled my mouth, that a flicker of something new ignited within me, a tiny spark of trust, a dim recognition that perhaps not all giants were threats. This giant brought comfort, not harm. The path ahead was long, a winding trail of pain and small, hard-won victories. I could feel the strange stiffness in my leg, where the bones were knitting, the constant low throb, a reminder of my brokenness. But with Laura, there was always the quiet presence, the soft voice, the patient waiting. Her resolve was a tangible thing, a force that seemed to push back against the despair that had threatened to consume me. She seemed to understand the silent language of my fear, the twitch of my ears, the flattening of my pupils. She responded not with force, but with stillness, with endless, gentle patience. The veterinary staff, initially skeptical, now watched her with a mixture of admiration and quiet wonder. They knew the odds, they knew the challenges, but they also saw the transformation, slow and subtle, that her unwavering dedication was weaving within me. Oscar the Bobcat, a wild creature, now teetering on the precipice of a different kind of life, guided by a woman's fierce, protective love. The scent of antiseptic was a constant, unsettling presence, a stark contrast to the familiar tang of pine and damp earth. Every sharp noise, a clatter, a muffled voice, sent a jolt of primal fear through Oscar the Bobcat's bruised body. He remembered the blinding flash of light, the terrifying sensation of being scooped up, the dizzying confines of a small, cold box. His muscles ached with a dull, persistent throb, and a hot, dry rasp in his throat was a constant reminder of the thirst he couldn't quench. The giants, these large, soft-footed creatures, moved with an alarming slowness, but had disquieting purpose. They spoke in low, rumbling sounds, but their eyes, when they met his, were full of an unnerving concern that he couldn't quite decipher. Fear coiled tight in his belly, a constant knot. He just wanted to disappear, to melt into the shadows, to be invisible again. Weeks blurred into an endless cycle of intrusive, gentle touches. The giant with the soft voice, Laura, they called her, a sound he learned to associate with warmth and a strange, comforting patience, was the most persistent. She would approach slowly, her scent a blend of something sweet and something clean, not predatory. There was the sharp prick, sometimes on his leg, followed by a cool rush under his skin, and then a slow, deep calm would settle over him, dulling the edges of his pain. He recognized the metallic taste of the IV fluids, the bitter tang of the antibiotics, but also the rich, savory smell of the food she offered. At first, he would only eat when she was gone, snatching mouthfuls of the surprisingly delicious, finely minced meat. But hunger was a powerful force. Slowly, a new association began to form. The giant with the soft voice brought the good smells, the relief from the gnawing emptiness. He still hissed, a low, guttural warning that sometimes made the giant flinch back, but she always returned. Her hands, when they had to touch him, were surprisingly gentle, meticulously cleaning his wounds, applying cool, soothing salves. The sting of the medicine faded, replaced by a strange, pleasant coolness, then a warmth that radiated through his tired muscles. He learned to tolerate the soft, careful strokes around his head, the ones that came after the food, before the giants left him to the quiet solitude he craved. These were not the rough, careless shoves he remembered from another time, another place. These touches were different. They carried no threat. They were hesitant, almost respectful. One afternoon, the quiet settled in the room, thick and heavy. The giant Laura was there, as she always was, sitting patiently by the mesh of his enclosure. He had just finished the last morsel of the succulent, meaty offering she'd brought. The warmth in his belly was comforting, pushing back the gnawing emptiness. He watched her hand, steady and unmoving, resting against the wire. He felt a strange pull, a tiny flicker of curiosity battling with a deeply ingrained caution. She wasn't trying to force anything. She was just there. The air was still, only the soft whir of some distant machinery breaking the silence. He found himself not recoiling, not tensing, not even hissing. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, Laura's fingers moved. Not to grab, not to hold, but to stroke. A feather-light brush against the sensitive fur behind his ear, then along the curve of his skull. His entire body stiffened, a primal instinct to lash out surging through him. But the touch was so incredibly soft, so utterly devoid of malice. It was just there, gentle, persistent. He didn't growl, he didn't flinch away. A strange warmth, entirely different from the sun, began to spread from where her fingers met his fur. It was a sensation he had never known before, a strange blend of vulnerability and something else, something akin to peace. He felt his muscles, so long rigid with fear, slowly begin to loosen. He leaned into it, just a fraction, a barely perceptible movement. The giant's touch, once a terrifying intrusion, was now a tentative bridge across the vast chasm of his fear. It was a small thing, this quiet moment, but for Oscar the Bobcat, it was a monumental victory, a single fragile spark of trust in a world that had only ever offered him pain. The unfamiliar smells, a cacophony of them, antiseptic, old wood, something sweet and meaty, had assaulted Oscar the Bobcat's nostrils, even before the dizzying shift of being lifted. His body, still weak, had resisted, a futile instinctual push against the giant hands that had, for weeks, been both tormentor and savior. The sting of needles, the overwhelming scent of different fur, the soft blankets that felt too warm, too safe, had all blurred into a strange, unsettling new reality. Then came the absence of the cages, the vastness of an open space. His paws, once accustomed to rough ground or the cramped metal bars, now met something soft and yielding underfoot. He'd stumbled, a phantom branch catching his blind eyes, and a wave of pure terror had risen in his chest, making him freeze, ears swiveling frantically for a threat that wasn't there, but that his broken mind insisted was lurking. The first few days in this new open world were a blur of instinctual fear. Every sound was a predator, every rustle of fabric a rustling in the undergrowth. He would press himself into corners, his whiskers twitching, his breath coming in shallow gasps, waiting for the inevitable pounce or trap. He hated the open spaces. They offered no concealment, no escape. The giant Laura would move around him, her voice a low murmur that he couldn't decipher, but that strangely didn't carry the sharp edges of anger or menace. She would leave bowls of cool water, the taste of which was unbelievably clean, and soft, shredded meat that finally soothed the gnawing emptiness in his stomach. But still, the fear was a constant tremor in his bones. Then came the other presence, a low, soft rumble, a new scent. Dog. His primal fear screamed at him. Enemy, predator, danger. He'd hissed, a weak, reedy sound, and bared his teeth at the empty air, ready to defend himself even though every fiber of his being was screaming for flight. But the dog Leo didn't advance. He didn't snarl, he just was. A warm presence, a soft, steady breathing that somehow didn't carry the sharp threat of a wolf or coyote. Leo the dog would lie a few feet away, a large, dark shadow that never encroached. Sometimes Oscar would hear the gentle thump of a tail, a sound he hadn't associated with anything but annoyance or pain before. One evening, Lost in the vastness of the living room, Oscar the Bobcat had stumbled, his flank brushing against the sharp corner of a wooden chest. A jolt of pain, a flash of fear that he was trapped again. He'd cried out, a small pain sound, and froze, awaiting the follow-up. Instead, a soft nudge, surprisingly gentle. It was Leo the dog, his large warm body pressed against Oscar's side, not pushing him, but simply being there, a solid anchor. Then a slow, deliberate movement. Leo walked just a step or two, then paused, nudged again. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but something in the pressure, the warmth, guided Oscar away from the sharp edge, towards the softer expanse of a rug. This giant, silent presence was showing him the way. Over the following days, this became their silent language. Leo, the dog, was a living map. When Oscar was confused, bumping into walls or furniture, a soft nudge from Leo would set him right. A gentle push with his nose, a warm presence by his side, steering him clear of obstacles. Oscar began to relax, his fear slowly replaced by a hesitant understanding. The world wasn't entirely featureless and dangerous. There were boundaries, and this soft giant, Leo, seemed to know them all. He was a silent guardian, a warm shadow, a comforting weight that never asked for anything, but offered everything. Their bond, built on unspoken trust and an incredible species-defying gentleness, bloomed in the quiet house, proving that even in the deepest darkness, guidance and comfort could be found. The world had shrunk, then expanded again, but differently. The air, once a chaotic symphony of fear and 1,000 overwhelming scents, now carried a new melody. The comforting rhythm of a steady human heart, the soft rustle of fabric, the gentle clink of metal against ceramic. Oscar the Bobcat, who had once navigated a vast, dangerous wilderness by the keen sight of his amber eyes, was now learning to see through the brush of fur against a textured mat. The whisper of air currents signaling an open doorway, the distinct tang of Laura's hand offering sustenance. Beyond instinct, a blind hunter was learning to navigate a new world through sound and touch, a testament to resilience blossoming in the quiet sanctuary of a home. The initial days were a blur of alien sensations. The sting of a needle, sharp and fleeting, followed by a blissful warmth spreading through his limbs, dulling the aches that had been constant companions for too long. The cold, metallic scent of a cage giving way to the soft, unfamiliar smell of clean blankets. A heady mix of lavender and something uniquely human. He remembered the abrasive dryness of his tongue, the rasping in his throat, and then the sudden, glorious gush of clean, cool water, pure and invigorating, offered in a shallow dish by those giant, looming figures. They moved slowly, spoke in soft murmurs, their voices a low thrum that eventually soothed more than it startled. Laura, the giant who moved with such a patient grace, had meticulously adapted her home. It smelled different now, a subtle map laid out just for him. Scented markers, a sprig of dried rosemary near the food dish, a dab of vanilla by the water bowl, a citrus peel by the entrance to the sunniest window guided him. Each was a beacon, a familiar anchor in the shifting landscape of a room. Textured mats, rough sisal near the scratching post, soft sheepskin by the fireplace, were strategic islands of sensory information under his sensitive paws, telling him where he was and what lay ahead. Through endless repetitions, gentle nudges, and soft words, Oscar learned to trust these invisible guides. He'd stretch, slow and deliberate, reaching with a paw, testing the ground, his whiskers twitching, absorbing every subtle vibration, every shift in air pressure. He was a creature of the wild, forced to relearn his entire existence. His world was now a symphony of sound and smell, far richer and more intricate than he had ever perceived before. The soft thump of Laura's slippers, the distant ping of the refrigerator, the low hum of the washing machine. Each sound became a landmark. The subtle difference between the scent of her hand after she'd been in the garden, earthy, floral, versus after she'd made a cup of tea, a warm, slightly sweet, became meaningful. He learned to differentiate the distinct clatter of his ceramic food bowl hitting the floor from the heavier thud of her keys, Sounds that once were meaningless noise now held vital information. And then, one afternoon, the purr returned. Not the weak, hesitant rumble of his first days, but a deep, resonant vibration that shook his whole body. He was batting at a crinkly ball filled with catnip, guided by the sound of its rustle and the intoxicating scent. He didn't see the ball, but he felt its erratic movements. He heard its soft scrapes across the polished floor. And in that moment, in the safety of Laura's home, he played. The joy was visceral, a pure, unadulterated release. It was a remarkable adaptation, a testament to his innate resilience and Laura's unwavering dedication. His heightened senses weren't just compensating for loss. They were creating a new, profound way of experiencing the world, making it vivid and tangible in a way his eyes never had. He wasn't just surviving, he was flourishing. The scent of pine and damp earth, once a promise of freedom, now mingled with the sharp tang of antiseptic. Oscar the Bobcat felt a subtle shift in the air, a familiar unease rippling through his sleek fur. The giant Lori had been a constant for so long, a soft warmth in the vast, confusing world of blindness. Her scent, a mix of old books and something uniquely comforting, had been his anchor. But now that anchor seemed to be lifting. The world became a series of unsettling vibrations. The hum of a motor, the gentle rocking that was different from Laura's familiar footsteps. Fear, a cold knot in his stomach, tightened. He remembered the first fear, the searing pain, the confusing voices, the rough hands that weren't Laura's. He remembered the emptiness, the gnawing hunger, the desperate thirst before the soft cloth wiped his face, before the gentle pressure of water against his gums. Now, that old fear, the one that made his whiskers twitch and his ears flatten, returned. He felt the shift, the gentle but firm touch of Laura as she guided him into the new confined space. Her scent, strong and reassuring, was still there, but mixed with a new alien smell. Sterile, metallic. He hated it. He hissed, a low rumbling sound deep in his chest, a futile protest against the unknown. But her hand, ever so soft, stroked his head, just behind his ears, a spot that always made him relax, made the tension seep out of him. He leaned into it despite his fear, a deep-seated trust overriding his instincts. He felt the shift again, the opening of the carrier, a different air, still new, but softer, less confined. He stretched, tentative, his claws extending, then retracting into his padded paws. He felt a different surface beneath his feet, not the familiar carpet or cool tile of Laura's house, but something rougher, more yielding. Earth. The scent of pine was stronger here, mixed with the unfamiliar musk of other wild creatures. A jolt went through him. Other bobcats? His blind world was always so quiet, so isolated. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. He took a hesitant step, then another. The sounds were different too. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, sounds he'd almost forgotten. He lifted his head, turning his ears, trying to map this new world through sound and scent. He could feel Laura's presence behind him, her familiar breath, her soft murmurs. She wasn't leaving him, not yet. Then she was gone, not suddenly, not with a jarring absence, but slowly, imperceptibly. Her scent faded, replaced by the pervasive smells of the wild. Panic, sharp and cold, flared. He vocalized a low, searching cry, a sound he rarely made. Silence answered him. He paced, confused, bumping into invisible obstacles, his anxiety rising. Where was the giant? The one who brought food, who provided warmth, who scratched that perfect spot behind his ears. He circled, his sensitive paws testing the ground. He felt the presence of something else, a new giant. But this one was silent, its scent different, less familiar. He cowered, remembering the pain, the hunger, the cold. But then a soft sound, a gentle murmur, not Laura's voice, but something similar in its intent. A bowl was placed before him, the scent of fresh meat. He hesitated, his primal instinct for survival warring with his ingrained suspicion. Hunger won. He ate quickly, his ears still swiveling, listening for any threat. This new giant moved slowly, deliberately, its scent neutral, unobtrusive. It wasn't a threat. It was, perhaps, another source of comfort. Days blurred into weeks. The confusion slowly gave way to a new kind of familiarity. The space was vast, confusing at first, but with time, he began to map it, scent by scent, sound by sound. He learned the contours of the enclosures, the best places to rest, the faint pathways made by other unseen creatures. The new giants, the sanctuary staff, were different from Laura. They were less intimate, their touch more professional, but their intent was the same: care. He heard the rustle of their clothes, the soft clink of their keys, the quiet murmurs of their voices. He learned to associate these sounds with foods, with fresh water, with the occasional gentle grooming that reminded him of Laura's touch. He missed her, a dull ache in his chest that sometimes resurfaced when a particularly strong waft of pine reminded him of his old den. But here he felt a wildness stirring within him, a deep-seated instinct that had been dormant for too long. He could climb, he could stalk imaginary prey, he could feel the wind on his fur without the confines of a house. He was still blind, but his other senses sharpened, his world expanding in a way it never could have in Laura's home. He was a bobcat, not a pet, and in this sanctuary's embrace, he was finally becoming what he was meant to be. The day of Oscar the bobcat's departure felt different, the air thick with something Laura couldn't quite name. But Leo, her old dog, felt it too. It was a tremor, a quiet hum of change. Leo's tail, usually a steady metronome of contentment, hung low, brushing the floor with a hesitant rhythm. He paced a small circle near the back door, then settled at Laura's feet, his gaze fixed on the large, sturdy transport crate that now occupied the center of the living room, an ominous, temporary fixture. Oscar the bobcat, usually a creature of exquisite, almost silent grace, was restless. He didn't pace, not like Leo, but his tail twitched with an underlying current of agitation. He'd jump onto the windowsill, then back down, eyes scanning the familiar room, then darting to the crate. The scent of it was new, metallic and enclosed, carrying the faint, unsettling odor of other animals who had passed through its temporary confines. It wasn't the sweet, woody smell of his tree perch or the comforting, aging scent of Laura's favorite armchair. It was a transition. Laura knelt beside the open door of the crate, her knees protesting slightly, but she ignored them. Her hand, calloused from years of gardening and gentle strength, reached out, palm open, a silent invitation. Oscar the bobcat, instead of his usual wary assessment, surprised them both. He walked slowly, deliberately towards her, his large paws making soft thuds on the rug. The rich, spotted fur of his back rippled under her touch, warm and vibrant. She stroked him, running her fingers along the muscular expanse of his spine, feeling the power beneath the softness. He leaned into her touch, a movement so subtle it was almost imperceptible, yet profoundly significant. He usually tolerated affection, accepted it with a regal detachment. But today, he sought it. A deep, rumbling purr, low and resonant, vibrated through his chest, a sound so rare from Oscar the bobcat that it caught in Laura's throat. It wasn't the purr of a house cat, but something wilder, deeper, echoing the ancient heart of the forest. It filled the quiet room, a powerful emotional testament to the bond that had formed between them. It was a purr that spoke of trust earned, of a past forgotten and a future embraced, no matter how uncertain. Leo, a silent sentinel, sat a few feet away, his chin resting on his paws. His eyes, usually bright with playful mischief, were shadowed with an understanding beyond words. He remembered the day Oscar the bobcat arrived, a terrified, snarling bundle of muscle and fear. Leo had kept his distance then, sensing the raw pain emanating from the smaller creature. He remembered the long weeks of rehabilitation, the careful dances of approach and retreat, the shared meals, the silent conversations across the room. He knew what it felt like to be found, to be healed, to learn to trust the giant, gentle hands. He understood the language of goodbye, too, Laura's fingers found a small scar just behind Oscar the Bobcat's ear. A faint white line against the tawny fur, a ghost of a memory from the trap that had once held him. She traced it, a silent prayer of gratitude that it was just a scar now, not a gaping wound. The memory of his initial arrival, gaunt and wild-eyed, his breath coming in ragged gasps, flashed through her mind. He had been a snarling, spitting fury, a creature of pure, unadulterated fear, convinced every touch meant further harm. Now he was sleek, muscled, his fur gleaming with health, his eyes clear and intelligent, holding a depth of quiet affection she never thought she'd see. The transformation had been arduous, a slow, painstaking process of patience, gentle words, and unwavering consistency. It had been about showing him, day after day, that humans weren't always a source of pain, that hands could offer warmth, not just harm. "It's okay, my boy," Laura whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She leaned her forehead against his, feeling the soft fur, the heat of his skin, the powerful thrum of his purr. "You're going to a good place, a place where you can be wild again." It was the promise she'd made him to return him to the wild, but the reality of it felt like a wrenching separation. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and Oscar the Bobcat's rhythmic purr. It was a goodbye filled with immense love, a profound testament to the fragile yet unbreakable threads that weave between species. Leo, understanding the gravity of the moment, nudged Laura's elbow gently with his nose, a silent offering of comfort. He remembered the sting of the needle that had numbed his injured paw, the confusion of the unfamiliar smells of the vet's office, the fear that had tightened his chest. But he also remembered the taste of the bland but nourishing food Laura had hand-fed him, the warmth of the blanket after shivering nights, the gentle touch that had smoothed away the pain. He understood that Laura was sending Oscar the Bobcat to a place where he would thrive, a place he truly belonged. It was hard, but it was right. The scent of wildness was still strong on Oscar the Bobcat, even after all this time in the comfort of Laura's home. It was a scent of freedom, of instinct, of the vast green world beyond the walls. As the sanctuary truck pulled away, a large white vehicle with official-looking markings, Laura stood on the porch, a silent figure in the fading light. Leo stood beside her, his body pressed against her leg, a steady, comforting presence. She could feel the subtle tremor in his aging body, mirroring the ache in her own heart. The purr had stopped, but its echo resonated within her, a silent promise of continued connection. It was not an ending, she told herself, but a new beginning, a testament to the transformative power of rescue, rehabilitation, and the profound, often unspoken, trust that binds them all. The space Oscar the Bobcat left behind felt vast, yet filled with the invisible threads of their shared journey. The air, once thick with the stench of fear and confinement, now carried the rich, earthy perfumes of pine needles, damp soil, and the faint, musky scent of other wild things. Oscar the blind bobcat lifted his head, twitching his sensitive nose, feeling the vastness around him. His ears swiveled, capturing the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant call of a bird, and the gentle gurgle of unseen water. This wasn't the sharp, metallic echo of a cage, nor the muffled sounds of the small, soft den he'd first known after the big, frightening hands had scooped him up. This was freedom, a dizzying, intoxicating expanse of sensation that hummed with life. He remembered the initial confusion, the jarring movements as he was lifted, the strange, antiseptic smells of the place where pain was chased away by sharp pricks and soothing warmth. Those giant hands, so terrifying at first, had become gentle, offering soft meat and cool water. He'd cowered, hissed, and spat, every instinct screaming danger, but the danger never fully materialized. Instead, soft blankets appeared, clean water, and the consistent, quiet presence of a giant whose touch eventually held no threat. Laura, the giant with the soft voice and the endlessly patient hands, had been a constant. He could smell her, a comforting mix of earth, old books, and something uniquely human that no longer triggered his flight response. He'd learned to trust the feel of her fingers against his fur, the low rumble of her voice a lullaby, rather than a warning. Here, in this new, grander space, the world unfolded through his remaining senses. The ground beneath his paws varied: soft earth, crunchy leaves, smooth stones, each a new message. The air carried a symphony of scents, each telling a story. The nearby scent of a squirrel, the faint, intriguing trace of another bobcat, and the pervasive, comforting aroma of the carefully tended plant life. He discovered hidden nooks and sun-warmed rocks, each a perfect spot for a nap. His body, once tight with tension and hunger, was now sleek and powerful, his muscles rippling under his gleaming fur. The deep guttural purr that had been a rarity, only coaxed out by Laura's most patient ministrations, now rumbled freely, a testament to his newfound contentment. It was a language understood by the other bobcats who shared this vast space, though their interactions were typically brief, respectful acknowledgments of shared territory. He no longer stumbled. His blindness, once a terrifying vulnerability, had become an accepted part of his existence, sharp-ening every other sense to an almost supernatural degree. He could map his territory with his whiskers, smell the approach of a caretaker long before they spoke, and feel the subtle shifts in air pressure that signaled a change in weather. The fear, the gnawing anxiety of the past had receded, replaced by an instinctual confidence. He was no longer a broken creature, but a formidable predator in his own right, navigating his world with grace and precision. The sting of hunger and the constant threat of danger were distant memories, replaced by regular meals and the secure boundaries of his sanctuary. He was, finally, truly home. This new horizon wasn't the harsh, untamed wild of his genetic memory, but a perfect blend of safety and natural stimulation. It was a place where a blind bobcat could thrive, where his resilience wasn't just admired, but actively nurtured. His world was rich with sound and scent, teeming with life he could feel and hear. The past, with its neglect and the terror of being lost and abandoned, faded further with each confident step he took. The humans, once looming threats, were now benevolent providers, their movements predictable, their intentions clear. He was Oscar, the bobcat who had found his way back to himself, a testament to the power of care, trust, and a new, wilder life. Lost in darkness, found in light. A bond that defies distance, a whisper across the chasm of fear and memory. Months later, the scent of Laura, mingled with the familiar, comforting musk of Leo, drifted on the wind. Oscar, the bobcat, felt it before he registered the distant, soft call. He was no longer the hunched, broken shadow that cowered in the corners of his mind, but the echo of that suffering still resonated, a faint hum beneath the purr of contentment. He had learned the rhythms of this place, the sanctuary, where the giants moved with a gentle slowness, and the air always carried the promise of food and clean water. The initial terror of their towering forms had softened into a hesitant trust. He remembered the sting, sharp and fleeting, followed by the blissful warmth that spread through his aching body, easing the constant throb in his leg. He remembered the taste of the cool, fresh water, lapped greedily from a shallow bowl after days of thirst that had rasped in his throat. The fear of being trapped, the frantic scramble against the cold metal bars of the carrier, was a ghost now, banished by the soft bedding and the quiet murmurs of the giants. They had seemed so large, their hands so clumsy, but those hands had also offered the first slivers of raw meat, pressed gently to his muzzle and stroked his fur with a feather-light touch when he finally allowed it. The sound came again, a familiar cadence, a gentle plea. Oscar's ears swiveled, pinpointing the source. It was her, the giantess who had spoken to him in the darkness, whose scent had permeated the very fabric of his fear, offering a strange comfort even then. He rose, his movements now fluid and graceful, a testament to the strength that had returned to his lean frame. Each paw landed silently on the soft earth, a hunter's grace rediscovered. He moved towards the fence, a natural boundary that now felt less like a prison and more like a gentle suggestion. Leo the canine was there too. his scent a reassuring anchor. Leo, the giant dog who had shared a cage with him during those terrifying initial days. His own fear a silent, shared burden that had, ironically, made the terror a little less absolute. Leo had offered a warmth that hadn't been hostile, a presence that hadn't been threatening, and now, the giantess Laura. She called his name again, a soft, crooning sound that reverberated in his chest, not with fear, but with a strange, undeniable pull. He settled near the fence where she stood, his body low to the ground, a posture of both caution and invitation. The wire mesh separated them, a permeable barrier that allowed scents to mingle, voices to carry. Her scent was stronger now, a blend of something earthy and something sweet, familiar in a way that bypassed thought and went straight to instinct. He heard her soft murmurs, felt the brush of her hand through the wire, not touching him directly, but a presence, a warmth that transcended the physical. And then it started, a rumble deep in his chest, a vibration that spread through his whole being, a purr, a deep guttural sound of contentment that had been absent for so long, lost in the wilderness of his pain. He was no longer the broken shadow, the ghost of a wild creature brought low by cruelty. He was Oscar the Bobcat, returned to himself, whole in a way he hadn't known was possible. The fear, the hunger, the sting of the cold, hard ground, they were memories, distant and fading. His new reality was the sun on his fur, the scent of fresh meat, the quiet rustle of leaves, and the gentle, persistent presence of these strange, towering giants who had offered him a second chance. He had found his light, not in the sharp clarity of sight, for his vision was still imperfect, a shadowy world of shapes and movement, but in the profound warmth of love and belonging. It was a rebirth, a quiet miracle witnessed only by the rustling leaves and the beating heart of a bobcat who had learned to trust again. The echoes of his past suffering still surfaced occasionally, a phantom limb of fear, a fleeting shadow across his peace. But they were just echoes now, dissipating quickly in the steady current of care. The constant, gnawing hunger that had driven him to desperate acts was replaced by the predictable bounty of meals. The fear of every sound, every movement, had given way to an understanding of the sanctuary's gentle rhythms. The giants moved with purpose, their intentions clear, their voices soothing. He remembered the overwhelming helplessness, the world a confusing blur of pain and panic. Now the world, though still a tapestry of blurred shapes and heightened senses, was one of safety, a place where he was understood, cherished. He was blind, yes, but he saw more clearly than ever before, through the lens of unwavering love. If this video touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Just drop a simple comment. Maybe type 1 if you'd welcome more story like this, or 0 if you just want to say you were here, or sharing your thoughts about the video. We'll see you on the next video.